So my question to you this morning, to start us off, is how big is your world? How big is your world? You know, the song asks a lot of, points out a lot of stuff that all of us can relate to one way or another. But I'm left with the idea of, would you go back to that slide, Thor, please, to the song slide? You know, how big is your world? Go ahead, go back to it. Do you all just want to walk this road? Don't you just want to go there? And just, wouldn't you all freak out if I popped up there and started walking? Because there's quantum world, nothing's real. We're going to get there someday. When I saw this slide that Reverend Dr. Laurie did, it just brought me back to the summer, to being in Yellowstone National Park and being in Montana at Big Sky. And there's something about being in the world where you just feel bigger. Now, Karen in her book talks about feeling small when you look at all of that. But there comes a point where you actually, knowing who you are all of that. And it just feels so expansive. So I wanted to start today with, how big is your world? Is your world the narrow space you live in? Or are you cognizant of all the opportunities there are in the world? And what have you created for your world? What box have you put yourself in? If you've put yourself in a box, how big is your world? Someone said to me, why do you drive to Palm Springs, every other week and have to drive all the way back that night to be at church the next morning? And I was like, you know what? I don't see it that way. I don't want to be somebody who's just one place. I want to be everywhere. What is that movie? I want to be everything, everywhere, all at once. And the funny thing is, we are. In terms of quantum reality, we are. But we haven't used our brains enough. We haven't used our minds enough. We haven't opened up our hearts enough to be everywhere. And boy, we have a great opportunity because we're connected to everything. Everything that's happening, we hear about if we're awake and alert. So how big is your world? There's a lot of lyrics in it. Who's never left home? Who's never struck out to find a dream and a life of their own? Every one of us. Every one of you left your original home, yes? Is there anybody still living in the house where they grew up in? Well, of course, Manny, you're only 20. 2, 3, 26? Get out. Give him a break. No. But think about it, right? Who's never left home? Who has never struck out to find their dream? I have a little story I want to tell. My mother passed away on September 4th, 1974. And I was in my junior year of college, the start of my junior year of college. And she passed away on the first day of school, junior year. And I was going to LaSalle Catholic College. And only for her, I did not want to go to LaSalle. I did not want to go. I'd already been through a Catholic grade school and a Catholic high school. I wanted to go to Temple University, where I had a scholarship for acting. No, I had to go to a Catholic college. So I went to a Catholic college to make her happy. But she died on the first day of school that year. And I didn't get back to school for a week after that. And when I got to school, a composer came up to me and said, I was looking for you. I wanted to ask you a question last week. Remember, we didn't have cell phones in the 1970s. And I said, well, my mother died, blah, blah, blah. He goes, oh, well, then maybe you won't want to do what I'm going to ask you. So he asked me, he said, would you consider, I wrote a new musical for you, and we're going to do it in New York City. We're going to do it at Town Hall for 3 weeks. He said, and it's called Young Ben Franklin, and you'll play Young Ben Franklin. And I was like, of course I'll do it. But then I had to go ask all my teachers, because I was like, I'm going to be gone for like a month. Can I do work can I do the work on the road? And they all said yes, except for the drama department, who felt I should stay there and learn how to do what they were teaching as opposed to go out in the world and do it, actually. But that's another talk. That's my talk on revenge. So I took the job, Now, mind you, my mother had just passed away. Our house was in a flux. I lived at home with my father, my mother, and my two brothers. And my older brother was married and already lived a little bit further away. And so I was going to go to New York for the very first time ever. And so I packed. And Kevin will tell you I haven't changed at all, but I overpacked for this 3 weeks. I had like 5 suitcases, and I was like Barbra Streisand when she's singing "Don't Rain on My Parade." I had every bag, and people had to carry them with me. So my brothers showed up with me. My dad came. My older brother even came, and they all put me on an Amtrak train in Philadelphia to go to New York City, to go stay at a hotel, the Edison Hotel on 44th and Broadway. And, you know, no one thought to think, no one had the foresight to wonder, how was I getting off the train with all of these bags? And how was I getting to the hotel with all of these bags? But somehow, through the kindness of strangers, they got me off the train, thank you, off the train, 34th Street and 7th Avenue, and I somehow managed to get all these suitcases tied together, and I just dragged them. Just imagine what that must have looked like. Now, it was 1974, so it wasn't as crazy as it is now, but it was still crazy. You still had to go through the red light district, which wasn't the Disney district at that time. It was the red light district for a reason. So there I am dragging all this luggage. I think I had like 2 hats on my head. Just dragging everything to this hotel, and then spending 3 weeks in New York City. And New York City was huge to me. I mean, everything was big, the skyscrapers, everything, and Times Square was enormous. Why do I tell you this story? Besides the lyrics that say everybody leaves, everybody goes out to follow their dreams. There's also a great line in here about mistakes, wide open spaces, room to make those big mistakes. And boy, I made them. How many of you made big mistakes in your 20s? Jim, you didn't make mistakes in your 20s? You were in the army. That was the first mistake. So, denial runs deep. Well, no. I think we all did. We all made lots of mistakes. Did you see them as mistakes, or is it just living? It was just like, that didn't work. Remember when you had the mindset of, well, that didn't work, let me try this, as opposed to, I made a mistake. Those boxed in, I shouldn't make mistakes. Because if you get to that point where you shouldn't make mistakes, you're probably not going to do anything, right? So the title of my talk today is Open Up. And it's about the opening of the heart. It's about the opening of the soul. It's about opening yourself up to a bigger world. It's about opening yourself up to a bigger experience of the world you already live in. And I want to ask this question too. When did we start fearing mistakes? At what age? What age was it? 6 for you? Oh, I didn't have them at 6. Yeah. I didn't start fearing mistakes till probably my 30s, maybe my 30s. Yeah, but you all have your own experience of it. And here's the thing. Mostly you fear mistakes because people keep pointing them out to you. And people keep shaming you for the mistakes you make, right? So, but I never really worried about making mistakes until like in my 30s. And it really was all about having to own up to who I really truly was and having a plethora of mistakes attached to that, you know? So Albert Einstein said this. Oh, I should be doing this, shouldn't I, Thor? Hold on. Okay, I'll do the rest of it. A person who never made a mistake never tried anything new. Makes sense, doesn't it? So when I asked you the question this morning, how big is your world? It goes right in line with this. How many new things are you trying? How many of you don't eat anything new? How many of you do not try new things? Oh, you all eat, like you all try different delicacies and stuff? Oh, good. So I was at Marcy and Al's. We'd had Oktoberfest for Global Truth Center last night in the desert. And she had this bowl there, and it was pickled. Marcy's watching this. She's like, it wasn't pickled, whatever it was. But it was herring. And I could see the fish. Does that sound good to you, Glenda? Does it really? Who thinks herring sounds good? Oh, wow. Okay, good. You're all the Jewish people in the congregation, right? Yeah. So what? Scandinavian. Okay. So I stood there, and my friend Chuck was eating. He went, "No, you have to try this. It's delicious." I was like, I can barely look at it. I said, "It looks like something that someone was done eating." I said, no, I cannot eat this. And Marcy's standing right next to me. She goes, "Well, you like my gefilte fish." I went, "Do I?" I said, "I eat it because it's the New Thought Seder, and I feel like I really should eat it as the spiritual director. And it's not bad." No, honestly, Marcy, your gefilte fish is probably the best gefilte fish I would ever eat if I were going to eat gefilte fish. And I do eat it every New Thought Seder. I do. I eat the whole thing, and somehow I get it down. But Marcy said, "James, you can't just decide you don't like that without tasting it." I said, "Really? Because I think I can look at something and decide whether I'm going to like it or not." So I took it. I took the little cracker, and I put, it was like a neuron of, an atom of the herring, and then a lot of the pickled stuff around it. I put that on there, and she was like, "You do need to put a little bit of the herring on there," and I did, and I ate it, and I was like, "Oh, it's really not that bad." Okay, and I thought to myself, I wonder how many other things I don't try because I've already decided I don't like them. I don't want to do that, So that's my question to all of us today in this month of spontaneity. How big is your world, and how likely are you to try new things? I do love this picture, though. Don't you love this picture? How many of you have ever had that happen? Where you've bought something and you bring it home and it's just... That looks like an episode of Friends. Yeah. So I have another quote for you. This one I just liked it. It made me laugh, so I thought you should see it too. "More people would learn from their mistakes if they weren't so busy denying them." Makes sense? Yeah. I think mistakes are great. I do. I think if you make a mistake, oh my God, you were doing something. You couldn't have made the mistake unless you actually tried to do something in the first place, right? So you're alive, and you're making mistakes. And what is a mistake? Nothing more than revealing what needs to be revealed for the next time and the time after that. Your life is very small when you're afraid to make mistakes. Your life is very small when you don't listen to what Karen was talking about, listening to that thing inside of you. Albert Einstein said this, and this is an amazing quote. "The greatest activity of which man is capable, opening up yet another fragment of the frontier of their mind." Just look at that quote. The greatest activity of which man is capable, opening up yet another fragment of the frontier of their mind. Your mind has barely been tapped into yet. And it's not because we all know that we only use a certain percentage of our brain. It's not that. Your mind, your consciousness, who you are, is what you've allowed to come through so far is almost, you can't even, inconsequential to who you truly are. And he's absolutely right. So when I'm saying today, when my title today is Open Up, I'm saying open up to the wide open spaces of your mind. Not just get out into the world and live a bigger life, but get into the world of your mind and live a bigger life. Be willing to... I think there's a reason why there's so many people in the quantum living class. I think people are starting to really wake up to, and why I have such a long list of people that are interviewing with me for the advanced consciousness class. That's what they want. That's what I want. I want to know more about what this is that I am. I want to know more about how my mind works, how the universe works, how my mind works in tandem with the universe, how my consciousness is the quantum field. I'm reading a book called The Quantum Enigma right now. And physicists do not discuss consciousness. So this is you would love him, Scott, very scientific, no nonsense. This is the way it is, scientists forcing us to look at our aversion to consciousness. It's an interesting book. It may be in the new advanced consciousness class when I finish reading it. But it makes sense. I want to know more about consciousness. I want to know more about the mind. I want to know more about God as me. Not something far off, not a man who was crucified. I know a lot about Jesus. I played him 3 times. I know exactly who Jesus was as seen through me. That's all well and good. Someone just said to me, why don't we teach the Bible? I said, you teach it. If you're that excited about the Bible, you should teach it. I won't teach anything I'm not excited about. I will not. Why would I teach? Would you want to take a class from someone who was uninspired with what they were teaching? No. Now, there's a book called Troward's Bible, which I love his interpretation of the Bible, but it's still not something I feel compelled to teach. Some of my other students ministers here can teach it if they decide. Well, I'm sure, Liza, you'd love to teach the Bible. So, wide open spaces. So here's my question. Where haven't you gone yet in your mind? Where haven't you gone yet? I mean, I made a joke out of being able to jump up onto that and walk through the road, walk down the road. But where haven't you gone yet? What haven't you allowed as a possibility in your mind yet? I allow that could be a possibility. In some future world, thousands of years from now, do you know, just think about what people will be considering normal then. I mean, if you go back, a few hundred years, our cell phones, that would be, no one thought about that. They didn't think about phones. What'd you say? Star Trek did, yes. That wasn't a couple hundred years ago. Yeah. So, what haven't you opened up to yet? Now, I'm not asking you to look for those answers, by the way, because you really don't have those answers, because you wouldn't know what you haven't opened up to yet because you haven't opened up to it yet. Right? So, what's stopping you from being open to a bigger world, a bigger life, a bigger experience, a bigger existence? What is stopping you? I'm going to tell you what's stopping you. The world you've already conceived of as your world. This is my world. This is where I live. This is what I do. These are my friends. This is where we go. This is how we act. All of that. It's a confined box of this is my life. But the spontaneity means that you're willing to break down, drop all those walls, and start expanding. And it starts with the mind. Walt Disney said this, or this. He said, we keep moving forward, opening new doors and doing new things because we're curious, and curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. So, how curious are you? How curious are you? How much more do you want to know? I love the Monday night quantum living class. People are getting so excited about what we're talking about, and I'm not sitting there teaching. We are just looking at all of this going, oh my God, is that true? And then it's just amazing. That 2.5 hours flies by. So what are you curious about? Without curiosity, you are living in a very confined life. The curiosity is where it all starts. You got to be curious. And when you're willing to really be curious, everything shows up. I call it, the title of my talk is Open Up, but I call it the quantum opening. Open up. So the quantum opening means that you are wide open to ideas that you very well may have said, that's not possible before. Anything is possible. If everything is on the table and everything is possible and anything is possible, that's what I call the quantum opening, because there's something inside of you that is calling you. There's something inside of you calling out to you. There's something inside of you moving through you, wanting you to live it, and you're all one thing. It's not like there's this God somewhere saying, Laura, this is your life. This is what I want you to do. It's not that. So if you're waiting for a voice, good luck. The first line to the song was, who doesn't know what I'm talking about? And then at the end of the song, as her folks drive away, her dad yells, "Check the oil." And I heard a lot of laughs on that, Liza, especially yours, especially as your 2 children are going out into the world, or at least your son is. Paloma will be before you know it. Mine, Will is out in the world, Nora's out in the universe, but Will is out in the world, and boy, we're constantly telling him to check the oil on so many issues. Yeah. Mom stares out the window and says, "I'm leaving my girl." It didn't seem that long ago when she stood there and let her own folks know she needed wide open spaces. Every single one of us needs wide open spaces. We need to break down these walls. We need to leave our self-designed boxes of a life and open up to something so much bigger. And you don't have to know what it is. You really don't have to know what it is. I remember leaving Philadelphia and going to New York City, and it was a wide open space. Do you know, I go back to New York City now, and it seems small to me. It just does. And Kevin has so had it when we're in New York City. Every street we walk by, I have a memory. It just drives him insane. I'll go, he goes, "I know exactly what happened on this corner, James." And it's my past, it's my memories of New York City that flood me when I go there, which I'm going there in a couple of weeks. It just floods me. But you know what? I am determined to see New York City again without all of my memories, and I like my memories, but to open it up. What don't I know about New York City? What don't I know about? I've never been to Idaho. Much like Herring, I probably don't need to go to Idaho, but I might want to try it. Anybody here from Idaho before I? Oh, you are? Should I go to Idaho and visit it? It's beautiful. See? I think Idaho, and I think it's landlocked, right? Yeah. You don't want me to teach you geography, by the way. Yeah. So, to close this up, are you willing to look at your life and ask yourself that simple question from the top of this: how big is my life? And if your answer is measurable, it's not big enough. And what I mean by that is, if you're able to say, here's what my life is, and you can literally put it in a box and say, here's who I am, what I do, who my friends are. If you can have that, then you need to reconsider. Open it up. Wide open spaces of the conscious mind are just waiting for you to ask it. What do I need to know? What more is there for me to do? What more is there for me to be? What more experiences can I have in this world? We all have, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years to live this life that we're living in now. And I don't know what happens after it, but I bet it's more wide open spaces. So why not do it now? Why not start now to live in these wide open spaces of our minds, then transforming it into our lives, and just be as spontaneous as we were meant to be. Namaste. Thank you, thank you, thank you.